Welcome to DP2 Insights. This is Pat DeLuca. This video will be looking at patterns. It's part of the composite job workflow. There are three interdependent or dependent parts that I'm going to try to mention this at the beginning of all three. There's the pattern, the composite layout, and the composite job generator. In this case, we're going to be looking at the pattern. So to begin with, we need to go to the categories in the user taskbar and go to grids. Go to edit patterns. It opens up the edit patterns dialog box, which allows you to do one of two things. You can either select to start a new one and select columns and rows, or you can select to open an existing pattern if you want to edit it. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to create a new pattern. And I'm going to go ahead and do 5 and 5 just because you don't need to see me do it 100 times. But I'm going to use this to illustrate a couple of things. The first is some of the buttons here and try to explain the significance of what each one of these does. Some of them are fairly obvious. When you begin a pattern to create a new pattern, it just shows you essentially the total number of countable nodes. So if you didn't do anything else, the countable nodes would simply be all those subject records, whatever image, whether it's sports or school or dance, whatever it is. One of the things that we want to do in DP2, however, is be able to organize how we deal with those patterns. The pattern is the beginning. It's what DP2 uses to organize the images on the page based on the number of subject records. So in this case, it would be 25. I'm about to change that, though, because what I want to do is show you a couple of things. The first is that I'm going to start with a save as so that I can create a directory specific to this set of patterns. So in this case, the patterns would be from 25 to 1, and I'll explain as I go what I'm changing as I do that. First thing I'm going to do is save as. By default, DP2 is going to open up in the last one. Folder that you were in, and this is a sports pattern that I created earlier. I'm going to go back to the patterns folder, and I'm going to create a new folder so that I can kind of show you. I have sample pattern. I'll just do sample 00 or 001. And I'm going to go ahead and begin my pattern for 25 in that new folder so that I can organize all of my patterns for this particular record. Once I've done that, now I can just save or remove and save. I'm starting, say, from the top down. What I want to do is identify a couple of things. First is just point out some of these buttons because they do a specific job. Some of them are simple, right? Revert, undo, next, previous, go to a specific node. So if you had 300 or 400 nodes in here and you needed to address a specific node, you'd want to use go to. You can select rows or columns. You can unselect using select none. The blue ones, as you can see here, are the countable nodes, are the ones that would be populated based on the subject record. You could select to have a blank node. So if I select a node, I can say blank. Those of you who've been around for a while, you recognize the symbol or the alphanumeric characters in there. I could select a group and make it a featured node. I'm not going to do that for this particular example. So I'm going to go ahead and select another one and make it blank. So now the shape of the pattern on the page for now what are 23 countable nodes is going to be this shape. And I can change it and move it around, manipulate it as I go. If I were to select, say for example, I want to add a column. So I'm going to go ahead and add a column. It's going to add on the outside edge. Perhaps I will not make this, but I will go ahead and make this countable and then make this one a blank. So now I have a slightly different, I'm a little bit closer to that 25 that I started at, and I'm going to change that as well. So let's say as an example I want to put the title, maybe it's the organizational name or the school name. So I'm going to go ahead and make that a title, and you can see again, in this case DP2 is also turning it purple, right? It matches. I could create a text node alone, which I could use a macro for when I go ahead and create the composite. I could do an image, or I could do image and text. And these are not considered countable nodes, and they can be populated in other ways. Again, the countable node being that kid in the class as an example. So what I want to do is I want the principal. Let's say this is a school. I want the principal over here. So in where it says node name, I'm going to go ahead and call that principal. What that means, if I could spell, is that when I go in to create the actual composite job, this is going to give me a way of identifying how DP2 is going to find which subject record is that principal. So now you can see I have the asterisk, and when I scroll over it, if you look down here at the bottom of this particular window, you'll see the node name is principal. Let's assume I have an assistant principal, so I'm going to call that AP, and I'm going to go ahead and select node name. Let's say I want the teacher out here, and again what this does is this sets up your ability to create and to use macros in DP2 when you're actually generating the job. Let's call that the teacher, and let's say this is the teacher's assistant. So there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. That's going to save it back to the folder, and you can see here at the top pattern sample 001 pattern 0.26. Now what I'm going to do is remove one, and I'm going to remove and save. It's one of the efficiencies by going going to the top of however many kids are in this particular class and working down. So I'll go ahead and say remove and save. And I'm going to do the same thing, remove and save. And DP2 is going ahead and saving those back to my folder. I think here I'll remove and save. Now depending on how you want this configuration, so if, say for example for 23 I want to remove here and change that shape a little bit, and maybe this is the way. These are the types of decisions that you'll make as you go through this workflow, and it's really about telling DP2 what pattern to use based on the number of kids in this example. And I'm going to use the sample order ultimately in all of these videos. So here I've got 20 kids, and it allows me to very quickly and very efficiently go ahead and create patterns. So now I've got 26 to 18. Perhaps I don't want one of these alone right down here on the bottom between my blanks. So I have a couple of different ways in which I could do that, could deal with that. I could leave these two here and take away one up here, of course, right? I could take another one, I'm going to save it, take another one up here, right? And so on, so that I get down to the appropriate number of kids based on whatever the range is that I'm trying to address. So let's say the smallest amount of kids in this particular group or collection is 15. So then this set of patterns would be complete because I have 15 to 26. The next step in the process, of course, is going to be to create those grid layouts and add some definition around what that page is going to look like. So I'll stop here. Just again, brief overview. If this is a workflow that you are thinking about implementing in your lab, please give us a call, let us know, and we can spend a couple hours in a WebEx or other training to get you more up to speed on how this template-driven workflow can benefit your lab. Thank you.